Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. So there was a comment I read on Reddit. It was in R No Sleep and it goes like this. I woke up in my room and I heard what sounded like my voice coming from downstairs. I assumed that my husband was downstairs already and I called out to him and got no response. When I went downstairs I found my husband sleeping peacefully in his chair watching TV. He doesn't remember doing that. I thought nothing of it and just made some breakfast and watched the morning news while he slept. A few minutes later I heard again what sounded like my voice coming from downstairs. I looked around for the source of the sound, but I couldn't find anything. I decided to ignore it and focus on my breakfast. The sound came again, and it was clear that it was my voice saying the exact same things I had said before. I ran to the stairs leading to my basement and listened intently. All I could hear were the sounds of my husband breathing and the TV. There was nothing in the basement. I went back to my kitchen and continued eating in silence, trying to convince myself that what I had heard was just a figment of my imagination. After all, I live alone. And then I heard my voice again. I followed the sound to the living room and saw my husband sitting in his chair with a bewildered expression on his face. He seemed confused about how he got there. This pattern continued throughout the day. Every time I heard what sounded like my voice, I would rush to the stairs and listen intently. Every time it was silent, I would go back to whatever I was doing and wait for the next time I heard my voice. I started to feel uneasy, wondering if I was losing my mind or if there was a logical explanation for these strange occurrences. Then it happened again. I heard my voice coming from the bedroom. I raced upstairs, my heart pounding in my chest, and entered the room. And there on the bed sat my husband with a vacant look in his eyes. I was shocked and frightened. How did he keep getting into these places? Was he sleepwalking, or was something else going on? I felt a growing sense of dread and fear as the situation grew increasingly bizarre. What I am about to tell you is not meant to scare anyone, but rather to warn you. If you ever hear what sounds like your own voice echoing through your empty house, do not investigate. Do not make a sound or move a muscle. Just stay perfectly still and pretend to be dead. As the hours passed, the mysterious occurrences continued. My husband would suddenly appear in different rooms, seemingly out of nowhere, with no recollection of how he got there. It was as though he were being manipulated by some unseen force, like a puppet with his strings cut. I tried to communicate with him, but he didn't seem to hear me. His eyes were blank and unfocused, and he didn't respond to any of my calls or touches. I felt an overwhelming sense of despair and hopelessness. What was happening to him? Was he all right? Was I going crazy? It was then that I realized there was only one way to stop this nightmare. I had to confront whatever entity was behind it. Armed with this realization, I began my investigation. I searched every room in the house, looking for clues, anything that could shed light on what was happening. But everything seemed normal. There was no sign of forced entry, no signs of struggle. It was as if the house itself was hiding something sinister. That's when I remembered the basement. I hadn't checked there yet, so I went down the creaking steps and turned on the light. The musty air hung heavy with the smell of dampness and decay. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, a dark, shapeless mass in the corner. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but its features were obscured by the shadows. I couldn't make out its face, but I could feel its presence like a weight pressing down on me. It was then that I heard it. The sound of my own voice echoed through the basement. It was coming from the mass in the corner. I was terrified, but I knew I had to investigate further. As I approached the mass, I could hear my voice speaking in a distorted, echoing tone. It was me, but it wasn't me. It was as if my voice had been hijacked by some malevolent entity. I couldn't bear to listen any longer, so I turned away and fled the basement. But the voice followed me. It echoed through the halls of my house, mocking me, taunting me. I ran to my bedroom and locked the door, but the voice continued. It seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. I collapsed onto the floor, overwhelmed with fear and despair. Suddenly, I had an idea. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. Maybe the police could help. But as I listened to the operator's voice on the other end of the line, I realized that even they couldn't help me. It spoke in my voice, mimicking my mannerisms and cadence. The operator on the other end was confused, asking me to repeat myself. But with each repetition, the voice grew stronger, more distorted. It was as if my essence was being drained away, replaced by something cold and soulless. I screamed in terror as the voice consumed me. It was then that I understood the horrifying truth. The voice wasn't just imitating me. It was me, or at least it was becoming me. It was a reflection of myself, a duplicate created in my own image, but without a face. It had been observing me, learning my habits and routines, feeding on my acknowledgments, and now it was ready to take over completely. I struggled against the entity, but it was no use. It was too strong for me. It pushed me to the ground, pinning me down with its weight. I could feel its cold, clammy flesh against mine, and I could hear the sound of my own voice, warped and distorted, echoing in my ears. Then it stopped. I looked up and saw that it had turned towards the window. The sun was rising, and the first rays of light hit its face. It recoiled as if burned, and I could see for the first time what it looked like. It was me, but it wasn't me. Its face was pale and gaunt, with deep-set eyes that glowed with an eerie light. It had no nose or mouth, just a gaping black void where my face should have been. I don't know how long we stayed like that, but eventually the duplicate let me go. It retreated back into the corner, and I could hear it whispering to itself in my voice. Then it vanished. I was left alone in the house, shaken but unharmed. But I knew that this was only temporary. The duplicate would come back, and when it did, it would be stronger than before. I needed to get out of the house, to escape while I still had the chance. So I packed a bag with some essentials and drove away as fast as I could. I knew that if I did, the duplicate would find me and drag me back to that house where it could feed on me and become stronger. I changed my phone number and moved to a new city. I tried to rebuild my life, but it was hard. The memories of what had happened clung to me like a shroud. I could never escape the feeling that I was being watched, that the duplicate was out there somewhere, waiting for me to let my guard down. And then one day, as I was walking down the street, I heard it, the sound of my own voice echoing in the distance. I froze, my blood running cold. I tried to convince myself that it wasn't really my voice, that it was just a trick of my memory. But deep down, I knew that the nightmare was beginning again. If you ever hear what sounds like your own voice coming from within your home, do not investigate. Do not speak or move. Just play dead. That is the only way to survive the horror that awaits you. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next video.